Homelander, the violent and sadistic top hero of Amazon Prime's The Boys, and All Might, Japan's symbol of peace in Koei Horikoshi's My Hero Academia. Two characters who each embody unique aspects of heroism and power, with All Might being your classic hero who would give his life to save those in need even without the power to do so, while Homelander in contrast is the furthest thing from what a hero should be, and solely values his position of power as well as his social standing above all else, and would kill anybody who slightly opposes or threatens him. So now the question is, what would happen if these two polar opposite soups adorned in red, white, and blue were to somehow face off? Would Homelander's versatile range of abilities and incredible durability give him the slight edge over Japan's #1 hero? Or will All Might's raw power granted him by One For All prove to be too much for the corrupt leader of the Seven to stand up to? Well, by analyzing both Homelander and All Might's individual stats like strength, speed, durability, and hacks, I'll explain to you just who wins this matchup, and why. So the first and arguably most important stat I want to go over is strength, starting off with All Might, who even while fatigued and in a weakened state punched so hard that he was able to generate a tornado capable of drawing in a nearby thunderstorm, which is a feat that has been calculated to require the equivalent to 2.4 gigatons of TNT worth of energy. Therefore, if we use the statement of Prime All Might only needing 5 punches compared to 300 in his weakened state to defeat Amida and Nomu, then Prime All Might would be capable of outputting 144 gigatons of TNT worth of energy with every punch, slotting him in the large island level range in terms of physical strength, and giving him the blatant edge in AP against Homelander, who as of the time of this recording is at best city level in terms of raw strength, if you take the statement of no weapons on Earth being effective against him at face value. As this statement would imply that even nukes like the US's B-83 missile, which has a maximum explosive yield of 1.2 megatons of TNT, would be ineffective against Vought's strongest creation. However, just because All Might is clearly superior when it comes to strength compared to the leader of the Seven doesn't mean Homelander can't make up for things when it comes to abilities. Since unlike All Might, who literally doesn't have a single power but punch really hard, Homelander on the other hand has an extremely versatile set of abilities, which includes the use of ranged heat vision capable of damaging soups as durable as Soldier Boy, enhanced hearing which lets him listen in on conversations from miles away and pinpoint people's locations, X-ray vision that lets him identify any anatomical aspect of an opponent, and even flight, which all come together to make Homelander the most deadly soup in the boys. With abilities covered though, the last thing we need to go over in regards to these two powerhouses is speed, and we'll be continuing with Homelander, who was so fast that he was casually able to outspeed and save Billy Butcher from his own chest explosive blast, which would require the mad hero to be moving at over 18 times the speed of sound to pull off. And like I said, this was something that Homelander was able to pull off casually, which makes sense when you consider he was easily able to outspeed someone like Soldier Boy, who himself can block light speed projectiles from starlight. Therefore, if you consider these projectiles light speed, then both Soldier Boy and Homelander are potentially relativistic to FTL in terms of speed, depending on what calculations you'd like to use. Also, before I get any comments about how Homelander simply can't be light speed, I myself will acknowledge that I'm very skeptic when it comes to this scaling meta, but I will also acknowledge that there really isn't any good arguments to definitively debunk the argument either, which is why I'll leave Homelander's exact level of speed up to your own personal interpretations. Moving on to All Might and his speed though, like with Homelander, there are multiple ways of going about scaling Toshinori, with his lowest end scaling having him at least massively hypersonic level in terms of combat speed, scaling off Fox 100% Deku, who is able to move at Mach 327 when intercepting Lady Nagant's bullets, while his highest end scaling would solidly place him in the FTL plus tier via having the speed to blitz characters like Mina Ashido, who could evade Aoyama's naval laser, which is stated to be light on multiple occasions. And again, before any of you start belly aching over whether or not Aoyama's lasers are actually light speed or FTL MHA being inconsistent, just know that there are several indicators of Aoyama's lasers being composed of real light other than statements, as his lasers were also able to refract off Invisible Girl and can illuminate dark areas, making it almost impossible to argue that the lasers aren't utilizing real light, meaning the only real arguments against God tiers and MHA reaching FTL plus levels of speed is that it would be inconsistent with such a grounded story, and that travel speed feats don't exactly support the meta either. However, if I'm being completely honest, neither of these arguments are really that good and are basically just skepticism. Therefore, I have no problem personally if you consider All Might FTL plus, but would also understand if you think he's only around massively hypersonic as well. But now that both Homelander and All Might have been completely skilled, we can actually get into just who wins this matchup, and I'm gonna get straight to the point with this one by saying if you've read a single chapter of MHA, and if you've watched an episode of The Boys, you just know that All Might absolutely dominates Homelander in every department aside from abilities, which really wouldn't amount to anything but slightly bothering the number one hero, if even that. In fact, this matchup is so one-sided that even the weakened All Might that fought Bakugo and Deku while restrained and at 20% would utterly bully Homelander the same way he did his students, who themselves are arguably Homelander level during this point of the series. So to summarize, while Homelander in his own verse of heroes is seen as more or less of a god in terms of strength, his level of power in the MHA verse is more so comparable to a Season 4 Deku at like 20% than he is a weakened All Might, let alone a prime All Might who would generally just punch bro's head off the same way he did All For One. Therefore, I think we can all agree that Homelander versus All Might is completely one-sided.